It's Buttons! And who we got over here? Chloe? How you doing, Chloe? Here at Gonero Games, and of course yours truly, here with another hot take regarding the market that we're currently in, with the shift over from a utility-based driven game over to a collector's game. And I'm going to keep beating this home because I think it is important, and I think that more people should be actually sounding the warning bells of what's going on, because many of us are old timers. We've been in this market for a long time, and I'm not going to even try to reference things like the Beanie Babies or comic book craze or sports world craze, where, you know, collectors just lost their minds and crashed those markets, because we are in a bit of a different market, and I will accept that and I'll admit that, than of those markets in the past. But a lot of the lessons that should have been learned in those days should be actually applied to this market regardless. However, what I really want to talk about is, since I am such an old timer and have been through this industry, is there have been many markets in the past that are actually reminding me of what we're in now, with this collectors driven, it doesn't even matter if the card is playable, collectors will spike up the price of a card because there's that many people that actually want to collect. And again, I want to actually preface this video. I have no problems with people collecting cards. I personally think it's kind of awkward. Like, it's kind of a thing that's cardboard. It's cardboard. There's nothing intrinsically cool about a piece of cardboard. Like, what always got me about Pokemon specifically is, like, what makes this version of the card more desirable than this version of the card? Just due to scarcity. Like, the art is actually cooler. Like, I think it was a Charizard I was looking at. One of them came out of, like, the box sets. So it was out of one of these box sets that came out. And the Charizard, actually, in my opinion, was super cool looking in whatever the box set was. And the one that actually came out of the set actually was pretty stupid looking. The one that was the chase card. But of course, the only reason that one card was worth more than the other one was the scarcity of it, and just, you know, everyone wanted to collect every Charizard possible. And it becomes almost a self-fulfilling prophecy of, you know, that kind of wow factor that I was able to pull this particular card. Anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent, so let me just rear back into where I'm going with this video. So I'm not going to crap on collectors too much, because of course they are a vital part of this ecosystem, and without collectors and without what we call the super fans, I think that the game would have a lot more ebbs and flows of like the market wouldn't be as secure as it is now, because we do need that element in the game. But when it gets over, when the pendulum swings too far the other way, and there are way more collectors than our players, then I think that we do have an issue, because at that point, you know, collectability is so fickle. It has no rhyme or reason a lot of times. Scarcity isn't the best. Like, you just can't say that something is scarce will make it automatically collectible. We've seen that not hold true over and over and over again, and not only other games that Magic the Gathering itself. So anyway, I'm going to actually harken back to a time where the collector market of Magic the Gathering also seeped in, and it led to a massive crash in not only the price of the cards that people were collecting, but the direction that Magic the Gathering took their game. So let's go back to a card called Jace the Mind Sculptor. So clear back in, what was it, Lorwyn, that they decided to come out with Planeswalkers, and I guess it started before. Jace Mind Sculptor was the tip. So I'm going to compare it to kind of Final Fantasy, because collector's boosters are nothing new. We've had collector boosters since all the way back in Throne of Eldraine. We've had Universes Beyond with Fallout, and they did collector boosters for, yeah, a few of Assassin's Creed, and so it's nothing new. We've had these super iconic IPs that have come into Magic, they've made collector boosters for them, and they have gained steam. So where I want to go back to making this comparison, though, is it was really, like, it's following the same pattern. When Lorwyn was received, it was very similar to how the energy was when the first Universes Beyond collector boosters. There was a little bit of hesitancy. The super fans, of course, loved the direction of it. They were more sought after than your average collector booster, and, you know, everything was on the up and up for those products. So when Lorwyn released their original Planeswalkers, same thing. There was this new, it gave finally something for people to collect beyond, like, reserve list cards and beyond super iconic. Like, I remember it was like elves, slivers, dragons, and angels. So if you had a card that was printed with any one of those tribes, those creature types, they are automatically worth more. We used to call it like the angel factor back in the day in Magic the Gathering. If they just slapped on angel, it'd be worth like a couple bucks more than if it was any other creature type, because there were those players that just collected every angel or every dragon. So you got to think of them like the Pokemon players that collect every Charizard. So there were those people, but it didn't lead to like runs on the market. There weren't like people going after these ultra chase angels and dragons, and I mean, occasionally there were stuff like that. But in the scope of things, it wasn't like the entire focus of Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering was still utility driven. If a card actually was worth money, it was because it saw play. I remember when JIT was 40 bucks, and we all lost our minds. Like, oh my gosh, a $40 Magic the Gathering card in the standard set. That was unheard of. That was like crazy talk at that point, that they were so expensive. And then came Jace the Mind Sculptor. And Jace the Mind Sculptor hit like the perfect kind of 1-2 punch. First of all, it was ultra playable, arguably like the best card, well, definitely the best Planeswalker ever printed up to that point, and it was super, super powerful for the standard that it was in, and people were even putting it into things like Legacy at the time. I mean, at that time period, it was really standard. Extended was okay, like some people did, but the vast majority of people either drafted or played standard. There wasn't a commander format at that point, and so most of the prices were definitely based upon if a card was actually playable as standard. But Jace the Mind Sculptor actually started to have another factor, which was now it gave people something to collect. And foil Jaces were incredibly expensive. They were, I think the peak of Jace the Mind Sculptor was something like a foil was over $1,000. Correct me if I'm wrong. And if I remember correctly, I thought the normal version got up to $300. Now, yes, a lot of it had to do that they were required in the tier deck at the time did run 4 Jaces. And it was a time period where Magic the Gathering went from an incredible lull to a high, to where a lot of people got back into the game, because during like the Time Spiral era, Magic was not healthy. It was the lowest amount of people actually playing the game. And so they adjusted print runners. When Zendikar came out, they didn't have the print runs to support the new. That's kind of when I got back into Magic too. I started dabbling my feet back in during kind of the tail end of Jace the Mind Sculptor hype. But, so Jace itself wasn't really the ultra collectible aspect of what then came in the next few years. It was just Planeswalkers in general. It gave people something, and we started to see this demographic of people that were just collecting Planeswalkers, because it was now associated with something that was, highly sought after, prestigious, and like if you showed your Planeswalker or your binder, you'd always want to show all the Planeswalkers. So no matter what, it could be the trashiest of trash Planeswalkers. Most Planeswalkers had like a bottom of like $5. No matter what, they were all mythics, and they were all at least $5. No matter how terrible the Planeswalker was, there were people that were actually collecting them. So actually, let me show you this. Now I'm thinking about that. So speaking of like price memory, or just memory in general, where you can't teach old dog new tricks, look at this. So Zach, I keep trying to get him away from this, but he still sorts things by Planeswalkers. So instead of putting them in their regular sets, he has these boxes of just Planeswalkers. And the reason why he did that is because we'd have so many customers that would come in and want Planeswalkers. So they'd like have a list of Planeswalkers they wanted to buy, because it was, gotta collect them all, gotta buy all the Planeswalkers. And so to this day, Zach still doesn't even sort things into sets. He still sorts them like into Planeswalkers. So there's just, piles and piles of Planeswalkers here, and, piles and piles of Jace. And so why I bring up Jace specifically is Jace, it kind of reminds me of Final Fantasy. Like Final Fantasy is the first time where I'm seeing cards that have absolutely zero play in like a constructed format. Yes, there are Ultra fans that play them in Commander. I'm thinking of like Terra. There are a bunch of these like alternate art cards of these specific iconic Final Fantasy characters, and they're decent in Commander. I mean, they have your run-of-the-mill average amounts of people playing them and building decks around them. But typically, if it's like a multicolored card that's super niche towards like it is the Commander and that's it, you're not like running in other decks. Like if we actually go back and look at those type of cards, they have a hard time going up above a couple bucks, let alone like the hundreds of dollars a lot of these are getting now, because of the collectors that have actually seeped into this and been collecting those cards for that reason. So my warning is why I've been kind of really barking down this or barking up this tree, is I do not think it's sustainable based upon the best indicator of the future is the past. And we've seen this where, first off, like I said, they're like, I'd even make the same comparisons to Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering is hot right now because it's hot. It became, around the Lord of the Rings era, Magic became a kind of a household name. Everyone knew about it. There are people like Post Malone that were playing it, and you start seeing that on like all the nerd sites. That I'm trying to think of that the girl that does all the board game reviews, and they had her like cast League of Legends before, and like they start playing Magic, and you start seeing in all the pop culture of people playing Magic. Magic became a household name, and then of course when that happens, then you will get the people who will come in just because it's trendy, and they'll start wanting to pick up all the things that are ultra collectible. I mean, it was the same thing even with the comic book world and the sports card world. There were a lot of people that had no business coming in to sports cards and comic books just because they realized that there was value to be made. You know, people started making portfolios of their sports card collection, become an asset class and things like that. And now we're starting to see that with Magic the Gathering, but isn't really the first time this has happened, because when Jace the Mind Sculptor did hit that just obscene price tag, then it created a self-fulfilling prophecy with Planeswalkers that every set going forward, Wizards of the Coast would actually like milk them. They'd create a Jace the Mind Sculptor. It became super, or not Jace the Mind Sculptor, just a Jace. They'd be like, okay, let's put a Jace in this set. And I remember the pre-order prices for Planeswalkers would be outrageous. Like any Planeswalker, no matter how crappy it ended up being, would always pre-sell for like, you know, 20, 30, 40 bucks. And then the foils would be just absolutely outrageous. And this lasted, like we still had the collector, the Planeswalker kind of price, the privilege of owning a card, just because of all the people that were putting in the binders. Like I said, we still, like I remember those days quite vividly, of people that were just making binders of collecting every one of the Planeswalkers. And to top it off too, is people are always going to think what's going to be the next card, because they knew it as a Planeswalker that broke the game, Jace the Mind Sculptor, so it had to be a Planeswalker in the future that is going to be able to be the card that goes from the $5 card all the way up to the $800 card. And so no one, again, the FOMO just really crept in, and no one was going to miss out. And so I think, again, that is why I keep beating home where a $900 collector booster out of Spider-Man, which we don't even know how terrible the set or good the set or how iconic the set is going to be, is just definitely jumping the gun. And this is just absolute FOMO because of how people have watched Final Fantasy go down. And now they think that it's going to be everything going forward, this Universes Beyond is going to have the same reception as something like Final Fantasy. And just like Jace the Mind Sculptor was kind of the fluke, and Planeswalkers weren't here to stay, and not only that, I think that it's special. Like, Planeswalkers were really cool when there were only a few of them, and they were easy to collect, and they were easy to, like, again, bling out your binder with these foil versions of Planeswalkers, just to, you always have those people. You always will have those collectors that want to have, the best collection. It's part of the fun of the game. It's part of the chase. It's part of the feeling of, working towards something, which I get. It's just human nature to want to be, collectors, to, build up that collection. However, just like Planeswalkers became so common and so done and tired, I can start to see the same thing happen for Universes Beyond. And the original is not guaranteed to hold its value too. So that's what I'm saying. Like, if we actually, I'm going to go check my computer here and get the exact pricings on here. So we have Worldwake, Jace the Mind Sculptor. Its highest price ever, looking over to this, was all the way, is it not going to show me the price for Jace? So the foil was over $900, was the most expensive, or the highest price that it looks like Jace the Mind Sculptor, or at least when MTG Goldfish was actually tracking it. And now a foil Jace the Mind Sculptor from Worldwake which was the OG, which is an iconic card you'd think that people would continue to still collect, because it does have some sort of nostalgia or some sort of collector. Yeah, it's not even worth. I mean, does look like there are some Jaces, like this anime. There's an anime Bloomborough that's worth like $500, and there's also a Secret Lair that's worth $500. But the Worldwake's $170. So this card was something that was at one point, over $800. And actually, I'm not even. This actually only goes back to January 2015. So it did spike up. So you can see that this was like, this held true for years and years and years. That that foils like Planeswalker, super iconic things, were the collectible card, and the market stubbornly held on to them being worth money all the way till January 2020. And now in today's day and age, yeah, it looks like actually a more reasonable price, about 140 of what would go with Jace Mind Sculptor. Now, of course, there are a couple other factors, which I think are still very relevant for this discussion. A, Wizards of the Coast does not leave money on the table. When they see things are valuable and profitable, they reprint them. So if we actually look at the amount of times that Jace Mind Sculptor has been reprinted, it's been in the From the Vault 20 as a foil. This is actually the cheapest version of Jace you can actually buy on the market right now, which is under 20 bucks. They've reprinted it as a Secret Lair. They reprinted it in a War of the Sparks Masterpiece. They reprinted in Eternal Masters. They reprinted in Masters 25. They reprinted in Double Masters. And they did multiple treatments in Double Masters with things like borderless and borderless foils, mind you, which were ultra collectible at the time, which now have basically no spread between a regular Jace the Mind Sculptor and a Jace the Mind Sculptor with the borderless treatments. If you actually look at Double Masters, the borderless are going for about 28 and the regulars are going for about 24. So there isn't really much of a spread for these cards. And again, that's kind of where I'm going with Final Fantasy in the future, is I'm not sure how well the test of time is even going to last for these OG cards. In my opinion, I think we probably are at the height of Final Fantasy, the height of collectability and Magic, and it's only downhill from now for these price discrepancies of where the cards are worth compared to actually how much utility the cards are seeing in the scope of actually being played. Now, I again want to reiterate that not only is it more healthy for the game to be a more player-centric, player-focused thing, but also future, or the past, the history of the game indicates that collector markets do not hold. They do not hold long-term. Sports cards, comic books, they don't hold. The video game collapse, and that is what made Magic so magical, was the utility aspect of the game. And, you know, super rare cards, especially reserve list cards that can't be reprinted, the ones that are valuable are not just scarce, they are because people still want to play with them in decks. They're still highly sought after for that reason. So anyway, I wrote, again, down some things. I'm going to try to get better at this, of like, I ramble too much on these videos because I get too distracted by all the things going on and my brain just is always one step ahead of my mouth, and I'm ready to be talking about the next thing before I've actually spoken it. But anyway, so let's just talk about where I'm going with this Jace the Mind Sculptor. So first of all, like I said, before Jace the Mind Sculptor, before Wizards of the Coast, and it's kind of sad too, because I think Wizards of the Coast at that point in time started to actually develop a pretty strong IP and identity and gave collectors something they wanted to collect. It is kind of sad now that the most successful things in Magic the Gathering aren't even Magic the Gathering. It's Lord of the Rings, the One of One Ring, and now we have basically, you know, Sephiroth's being worth way more than Jace's. In fact, like Atraxa, one of the most iconic cards, is now more sought after as the Sephiroth version than the Atraxa version, which is, you know, incredibly sad at that point, where, you know, instead of like the skin is worth more than the OG. Anyway, so Jace was the birth of a modern icon. So Planeswalkers were the first time that Magic the Gathering sold more than just cards. They sold characters. Jace wasn't just a finisher, he was a blue-eyed cipher for a whole identity in the game. For the first time in years, MTG had something collectible that wasn't tied to a reserve list slot or gameplay function. People wanted all the Jaces. It didn't matter if it was Jace the Mind Sculptor or Jace Beleren, they all had kind of the Jace hike-up price. Didn't matter if they were good, if they were in packs or promos, didn't matter if they ever needed to be sleeved. Owning them meant that you were part of the mythology, and that's where the kind of the collectability started, you know, creeping in. So when Jace the Mind Sculptor became arguably the most powerful Planeswalker ever printed, the market got a high on what if. Every new Jace release was a lottery ticket wrapped in a collector frame. Pre-sale prices skyrocketed not because of playability, but because of price memory. The belief that any Jace could be the next one. Wizards of the Coast saw the pattern and couldn't resist. When they needed to move packs, they didn't print better gameplay, they printed more Jace hype. And that's what I'm saying, like, look at the amount of times, Masters 25, Double Masters, Eternal Masters, all these things that Wizards of the Coast used to try to sell these Masters-based sets. And that's what I was talking about in the last video, is we've been through, instead of collector packs, we went through like the Masters series, where Wizards of the Coast just milked the crap out of that. And I think that arguably is more utility-driven. They were actually bringing in reprints that people were playing in 4-ofs in modern decks or in commander decks to try to get people to purchase price. And I still think that's a better business model in the long run. And again, time will tell if I'm right or if I'm wrong. And then we went into kind of the stage 3. which is the over milking stage. So Planeswalkers kept up for a while, but with every cycle came the same formula: reveal the character, let speculation and nostalgia inflate the price, let people think of the what ifs if this is going to be the next big card, deliver a card that often wasn't worth the plastic or the cardboard it was printed on, and add to that bloated storylines, too many Planeswalkers shoved into too many sets. Does it sound familiar? Too many Planeswalkers shoved into too many sets. Now we have Final Fantasy into Spider-Man into Last Airbender before we even have a Magic set. Like, we're having just like Edge of Eternities, I guess, was a hat set, but I mean, look at this. We go FOMO, and Edge of Eternities was an incredibly milk set with, they can't do shocklands in every set. They have to pick and choose where they strategically put shocklands and Ancient Tombs, which in my opinion is the entire reason for Edge of Eternities. I actually think there's a massive price discrepancy again with Edge of Eternities between collectors packs and non-packs because of the juicy stuff like the Ancient Tombs that have such a high premium over what you can actually get out of the regular set. There's just a formula, in my opinion, that is disastrous in the future because it doesn't rely on the tried, tested, true magic of Magic the Gathering, which is the gathering, which is the playing. And they can only go so far with these. This isn't infinite. You can't do this every set. So we go into a nostalgia IP crossover rich set and then into a set they guaranteed through Ancient Tombs and Shocklands, into now another Spider-Man IP crossover. Now people are like, oh no, I got to get in there because we can't let it happen to Final Fantasy, and then a Last Airbender, and then we get a Lorwyn, which they can't go back to an iconic set every time. It's really troubling what 2026 has in store. And again, I keep reiterating Lord of the Rings. Like, I can't believe that you guys lived through Lord of the Rings, right? Like, everyone went through the same boom bust cycle with Lord of the Rings that I went through, correct? It just baffles me that people have forgotten exactly, how that was, with kind of milking the collectability, the FOMO, that every iconic Lord of the Rings card is worth something, and all of a sudden none of them are worth anything except for Orcish Bowmasters, which isn't iconic whatsoever in the kind of Lord of the Rings kind of nostalgia realm. That Orcish Bowmasters is literally worth money because of its implications in Commander and Modern. Anyway, I digress. So, eventually the myth decayed, the collector market for Planeswalker collapsed, and now a Mythic Walker can sit in bulk bins because collector trust is gone. Like I said, does anyone even have a Planeswalker binder anymore? Does anyone ever flip open all their Jaces they've collected? And comment section, do people remember that as well? Were your local scene the same as my local scene in Salt Lake City, where there were those foil chasers, there were those people that were collecting sets of each Planeswalker, or at least one of each Planeswalker, because it was the only thing you could really chase after. And so anyway, so why does Final Fantasy feel different now? Final Fantasy flipped the table. Cards in the set, whether they're playable or not, hold value simply because of what they are. Iconic characters people recognize beyond the game. Nostalgia-rich IP with decades of emotional investment. A crossover that didn't require you to already be in MTG's lore swamp to care. This is pure collectability, not utility. Just like the early Planeswalker era, people are buying because the card means something before they even sleeve it up. So the dangerous parallel, Wizards of the Coast notices, and just like the Jace era, they want to replicate that high. I was talking to Talmadge actually, because we're baffled. Why in the world isn't Dragons of Tarkir had a set or a play booster reprint? Why isn't Final Fantasy had a play booster reprint? Why is Wizards of the Coast lagging behind on all these stuff that are crucial to the game? You can't even draft these sets right now. If your store and wanted to actually run the game, there's no product for this kind of stuff out there, which was a kind of a pledge for Wizards of the Coast to make sure these things were available, because they realize you need to kind of keep these highs going. And my opinion is Wizards of the Coast is all drinking champagne and patting each other on the back of their recent successes, that they're too busy to realize, oh crap, we have this game to run, and things actually need to be. And again, this is one thing I think about the direction they're going with play about boosters, is why chase the tens of dollars when now they can chase the thousands of dollars per profitable, the margins. Why chase the 50% margins when they can chase the 500% margins? That's a better analogy. And that's exactly what's going on with this, is they are noticing this, so they want more big name IP drops, more characters chosen for merchandise viability. We went through this with Disney, with Marvel, where everything Marvel for a while was like liquid gold, where you could slap on Marvel in any reskin any game and put a Marvel character in it, and it sold. You know what doesn't sell now? Lorcana. You know what doesn't sell now? A lot of these Marvel games that like WizKids have put out and all these other ones have gone down in the dumps because nostalgia and collectibility is not a tried, tested, and true, proven business plan going forward for a trading card game or a board game or any in the gaming thing. You can't just rely on that. There have been so many video games too that failed and crashed and burned when they think that they can just get away with a iconic type game. That's like, it's kind of reminding me too of a Brandon Sanderson game, Mistborn, that came out. This is absolute trash. That board game is awful, and people pre-ordered it and kickstarted it and everything like crazy. And in my opinion, that game is not going to last the test of time too. It's going to be another Red Rising. If anyone played the board game Red Rising, I actually enjoy it. But Red Rising, the board game, had initial like massive Kickstarter wave of people buying the collector's versions of it and like really hyping up the game. And then it definitely is a very niche game. You have to be into that sort of very simple set collection type. I'll have to explain how Red Rising works some more. If people don't know what Red Rising is, Red Rising was a book series that was quite popular for quite some time. And they came out with a board game that you could say is pretty uninspired. It is very similar to other games that are just about set collection. Like you basically you draw a card, discard a card, and do an action. And it's a very, very simple game. So Red Rising, though, why I'm kind of bringing this up, is it went on bulk bins. You could buy that board game for $5 because they overprinted it, thinking that there'd be such, because there was a misstable. There was a massive demand early on for the game, which triggered a bunch of reprints, and now the reprints didn't hold up with the hype of, you know, people, because the game wasn't that great, so the actual gamers weren't actually collecting it or buying it to actually put on their gaming shelves, and the people that did buy it were like, this game is not that great, so they just put it back in the open market, and then we had this problem of a glut of Red Risings. I'm thinking the exact same thing's going to happen with Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn game, because it's pretty bad in the scope of like board games, in my opinion. You might disagree with me there, but again, it was another game that was more focused on the IP than actually the mechanics of the game. Anyway, I'm getting derailed here, so let's get back on track here. So the dangerous parallel. So we're going to get an inevitable flood until the magic wears off. How many sets in a row are people going to be wanting to push out $900 for collector's boosters? How many sets in a row are people going to be like, I need to collect every one of my favorite IPs? Okay, we're going to do a Warcraft. We're going to do a Diablo. We're going to do a StarCraft Brood War. We're going to do, and you know, I actually used to play semi-professional StarCraft Brood War, Kalair back in the day. It shows, you can see my gray hair. I'm an old man. If I was more of a nostalgic, if I cared about that sort of stuff, I would eat it up of trying to have like cool StarCraft characters, Magic, kind of blend my two favorite games. But even myself, I'm not going to pay $900 for a collector booster. There's no way, no how. So the danger is that these IPs and collectors will burn out faster this time because of the nostalgia IP has a sharper edge. The moment it feels cheap or overdone, the emotional hook snaps. So this isn't new. It's the Jace cycle that is now reborn in IP cosplay. And an icon rises, speculation inflates it, corporate milks it, and eventually the very thing that made it collectible is ground to dust. Right now, Final Fantasy is the crown jewel of MTG collectability. But if Wizards of the Coast runs it like they ran the Planeswalker boom, they'll kill it faster than they built it. And when that happens, the Greater Fool era shifts again. People will stop chasing gameplay, stop chasing IP, and maybe stop chasing entirely. So this is why I'm beating it home. This is coming from a person that has put so much of his passion live. I had a channel that had about 35,000 subscribers at one point. Like a lot of you have come here, like I love the comments saying, oh, I'm an Alpha Investments wannabe. And I'm like, wait a second, I predate Alpha Investments. I've been doing this longer than that dude. That dude is just, you know, put out consistent video coverage. This has been kind of the problem with me, is I've never ever had anything called consistency, because my mind is always start new channels, new projects, and off to something shinier. But at one point in time, I had a very, very successful Magic the Gathering YouTube channel where I talked about everything Magic the Gathering, played decks, made a pro tour, showcased all the decks I was working on. I had enough passion that when I moved back to my hometown here in Richfield, Utah, and we didn't have a store, I started a store. This was the whole reason of this store was not some little get-rich-quick scheme for me. It was actually putting my money where my mouth was, and trying to turn my passion of my excitement, my love for the game, and get as many people involved. Try to represent it in an area. Like, my whole reason why I actually started a store here in Podunk, Richfield, Utah, is I, as a kid, would have killed for a store here. Like, we were always trying to get people to play in the library, trying to get friends to play Magic the Gathering. We just wanted a place that we could sit down, meet people, and play Magic the Gathering. And as an adult, you know, I like, okay, well, who's better to do that than someone that had connections? At the time, I was sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. I was being able to get product by, you know, trading them video content for sealed Magic the Gathering product, which helped me start the store. I had all the other contacts I'd made over the years with, you know, through the Magic the Gathering scene. And, you know, I had business experience and contacts. I'm like, you know what, this is you know, what I do. So this is where a lot of these videos are coming from. I want this game to last. I want to be able to continue to eke out a livelihood of selling cardboard. And maybe I am biased. Maybe I am a little bit selfish to where I think people should be experiencing the game. And that this whole shift towards like collectors over players, I think, is at the best incredibly risky. And even if I make these short-term gains, like, and I haven't made a lot of money, I've still prioritized my Patreon. I think that the patrons helped me build this store. We were able to, you know, really scale this business because of the platform that I started there with kind of the subscription, the membership service. And so I didn't make any money on Final Fantasy, and I could be making a ton of money on Spider-Man. I've chose to, you know, reward people that have been with me for a long time. But, you know, in the short term, stores, yeah, will make out, speculators, a lot of people will make out a ton of money on the short term. But I for the life of me, cannot see this lasting long term. And just like Jace the Mind Sculptor is now a $20 card that was once a $300 card, I think, I mean, what is the more realistic scenario? Is the more realistic scenario that Final Fantasy collector boosters, and maybe they will, because sealed product does tend to age just based on the fact that things can be unsealed, but we're still in the era where the reason why like a Lorwyn box is so expensive, sealed, is because they're incredibly rare. But even those things have dipped so much because now they just seem so lackluster compared to newer products that have better cards and shinier cards and flashier cards. And I mean, it's the same thing with Pokemon that has really, really worried me, is how come all the new stuff is collectible? Isn't that like the opposite? Shouldn't like a lot of the old stuff be ultra collectible and not this new stuff? It should take some time. It should take some time for these things to become scarce and build up. But in this day and age, like I said, I think that this market is so speculative based that it's not collectors that are moving the market. It's people that are, you know, slabbing and getting their boxes graded. That's like, that's saying like these, like I have this huge new this pressure to like double box because people are getting boxes graded. Are you kidding me? Boxes, cardboard boxes graded. People are getting these graded with stop tape? Like this stuff, we've come to the point that it's just complete insanity at this point, where it's you know, people are thinking about being rich off of cardboard. It's not uranium, it's not gold, it's not something that has any intrinsic value. It's cardboard. It's only valued based upon the fact of how much, you know, the next person is willing to pay for it. And again, vintage video games, if we're even going to like vintage art now that's having a collapse, like vintage wines. There's a lot of things that have not held the test of time because generations pass and are more, you know, focused on other things. And where I'm trying to kind of bring this back in, I would way rather go to the small gains, the 5-10% gains, the utility gains, like, oh, this card now became rare, this box is now worthwhile because it's got some sort of card that someone needs in Modern. I'd way rather have those days of small gains and like have some common sense, have some sense, make some sense of why products are worth based on utility-driven things of, you know, needs of actually playing the game, than really in this era of this, again, not nostalgia farming, FOMO farming, speculation farming, get rich quick scheme farming era that we're definitely in. So hope you enjoyed this video too. Let me know how I can actually make these ones better, what people like to see on this channel. I kind of just pick up the camera here and talk, and yeah, it's been quite successful. I've been trying to revive some of my other channels too, but it's like, I just want to talk more about this stuff and argue with random YouTubers on YouTube than actually put in the work to actually create like content for like deck building and stuff like that. So anyway, appreciate everyone sticking around with us. We'll continue to grow this channel and continue to produce content. As always, looking forward to your comments section. Sometimes I don't respond back, but I do read a lot of the comments, and a lot of them do make me smile. A lot of them do make me, raise my fist. A lot of them do make me cringe, and keep them coming. Thanks for watching.